Are we trusting AI too much?
Because AI sounds confident
Yeah.
does not mean that AI actually understands.
Trust is one of the biggest small words in my world.
Trust actually cuts into business.
I had to go to my favorite chatbot. I couldn't spend 5 minutes searching for the same information and knowing that it's definitive.
80% of your workforce is going to be like literally replaced by this thing. The stakes are even bigger. AI knows. The question is, how much should we trust it?
So it's going to be an eternal question. But are we trusting AI too much? Edosa, the floor is yours.
Are we trusting AI too much? Look, I think if there was a straight answer to that, is that because AI sounds confident,
Yeah.
does not mean that AI actually understands. So are we trusting AI too much? Absolutely yes.
But it also gives me the clearest answer. It gives me something that I wanted to hear. It gives me the things that I was looking for that I couldn't find anywhere else. I couldn't spend 5 minutes searching for the same information and knowing that it's definitive. No way could I do that. I had to go to my favorite chatbot. The thing, of course, is that it doesn't understand really. What it does understand, based on my data, is it understands what I want to know. So have you got any examples where you've potentially had a very difficult time or an important time, gone to your favorite bot and said, survey, tell me the answer, please?
Like, I mean, in my daily life, there's plenty of these examples. But I think the deepest one that comes to mind right now is actually a personal story.
Right.
And it was actually a family member who's gone off on holiday. And you can imagine it, you're going, it's a lovely holiday. You're in this amazing apartment. It wasn't quite the penthouse, but it was high up there. And they walk into the kitchen, which is, again, beautiful.
Was it one of those good kitchens
Yes.
with nice wooden surfaces, or, is it marble? Maybe it would have curtains where the cupboards should be. What sort of kitchen was it?
I wasn't actually there.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't actually tell you exactly what the kitchen
Gotcha.
was, in terms of the finishing.
Yeah.
But, the story was that he just wanted something to eat, and actually something for a little child.
Yeah.
And, imagine that you go into this lovely place, you open up the fridge, and there's lots in there.
Yeah.
You have absolutely no idea.
No.
Because it's all in different language.
Sure. Sure.
And so he's standing there staring at this thing and wondering what to do. And then suddenly clicks, oh, of course, go on to, AI, right? And you put the questions in there. What of this is actually safe, given, my little one's got a nut allergy and all that.
Oh my, that's serious.
That's serious.
Right.
That's serious. But AI has come back confident, calm, and, seem very, very much, you had the information.
Yeah.
Right? And a long story short, they end up in hospital.
No. Ugh, that's the worst nightmare.
Yeah.
They are in hospital. Everyone's okay, I hope.
Thankfully, yes. Right. The doctor did say this could have been an emergency, right? And I think the ultimate thing here to remember is that confidence does not mean intelligence, and really, putting something out there that is all nice and sounds good does not equal, truth, right? And I think, that's a fundamental thing that people should bear in mind when they think about this.
Trust is one of the biggest small words in my world. And I worry so much about it. It gets me to sleep and it wakes me up in the morning. And truth and trust, and how much we can trust the information we're given from, say, AI, it's other places too, but that's one of the most important things right now. You had a very personal situation. I'm often asked, okay, how do we transfer our understanding of the information we're given into our businesses? How does it transfer from our own lives? It's a good question. And I get asked that quite a lot. Well, yeah, because we walk this into our lives, into our businesses, and into our kitchens every single day of the week. And if you're relying on stuff that doesn't give you an accurate answer, hey, it's accurate, it's not accurate, but it sounds accurate, then you've got a real problem. And so for me, trust only comes from critical thinking, quick, instinctive thinking that will maybe back you off something. I mean, I'll keep it really short, but there's an example that I had, and it's a social media thing. You know, we've all been subjected to AI not giving us the right answer on social media and so on. That's increasingly the case. But this one was about me. I was posting out. I rarely post. I was posting something, and I thought, okay, give me some headlines. And give me some great mis and disinformation headlines, and it did that. And the fifth one was, it was a quote. It was a quote from me. It quoted back to me something that the EU had read that I'd said. And I thought, that's the biggest bit of promotion I can have. It's not a nut allergy. It's not as serious, but for me, it was like momentous. So my positivity bias, which is a lot of what we're talking about here, my wish for that to be true, and the assistant gave me everything I needed to think it's true, launched me into a post. And I was 1 second away from putting that out the next day. And I thought, you know what? It's the first time I've done this. Let me just hold on for a second. I'll go analog. I'll waste my time. I'll waste 5 minutes of my time and just do a little search. The news headline it gave me, backing up my side of every story that I've talked about recently, was completely untrue. It didn't appear on any websites, and certainly didn't appear on the EU website. It was untrue. Now, okay, gave me a jolt. I think at the moment we're in a situation at an age where we need to hold off our belief. And that certainly is true. You know, we talk about business as well as we talk about our own lives. In business, certainly that's the case, because if a leader says we need to trust this, we need to trust this decision, we need to introduce this system into our world, then you're going to have to trust them because your job might be at risk. Or you might just think, yeah, okay, that person knows what they're talking about, so the decision they're making is right. How do we handle that? Because it's difficult for any of us in our world, in our businesses, to hold off and ask the person upstairs from you, sorry, sir, madam, I'm not sure that's entirely true. I shouldn't be doing that. How do you do that?
Well, I tell you, I think the first thing to say is that, you know, the story, of course, we talked about personal stories, but this situation with trust actually cuts into business, right? You think about it, you know, you go into an organization and you think, oh, you know, that's just, you know, a ChatGPT or a Claude or whatever else. You know, actually, does that impact within organizational walls? The simple answer is absolutely yes. In fact, in some ways. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, in some ways, the stakes are even bigger. You know, and actually, executives are actually much quicker to trust in some ways. I mean, it might sound a bit strange, but they're actually quicker to trust. And part of the reason for that is that the promises within organizations are much bigger.
The investments are bigger. The decisions, how you affect your customers, your world is bigger. You know, if you make a personal decision, that can affect you and your family and your loved ones. But actually, if you take it into, if you walk it into your business, you've got an entire world out there who might be affected by what you decide. Your investment decisions, your decisions on which products to push forward, your view of the world can impact that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about it, you come in and it's a vendor demo, you know, the demos are confident. They're very, very, you know, very visual. You can actually see things working. You can see, you know, this is going to actually solve my problem here. You know, they talk about, you know, 80% of your workforce is going to be like literally replaced by this thing. You get efficiency gains of this much. You have your workflows. It understands your customer. AI knows it all.
Yeah,
and with that size of promise, it's no surprise actually that a lot of executives actually buy into it without, you know, again, what we're not trying to do here is say AI isn't delivering value.
Yeah,
it absolutely is. The question is, how much should we trust it, and how much should we be double checking?
And as we talked about in our first episode, how much is it taking away? And it might be taking away your human touch, if that's important. It might be taking away the nuance and the discretion that your people have. It might just be the journey that your customers want. And certainly that's true. You know, if we take it back to our personal lives, when we're working with any business, you know, a little bit of that personal touch even when it's just to deal with a crisis in your own world, in insurance, to deal with a claim. Those things are very important. And if we lose that, we're losing actually the heart of what we are as an organization. And, one of the things that really worries me, and I think worries a lot of people, whether you're listening and watching us, whether you are somebody who works in a business, whether you lead a business, look, the skills difficulty. If we lose people in our business, I know that Amazon has recently decided to chop some of its corporate jobs, many thousands of its corporate jobs, a small proportion of it's over workforce, but still, it's a big headline. Was a big headline last year. Some of the skills you lose are going to be a difficulty potentially for you in the future. So is there a certain limit to what we can lose in terms of skills? Can we afford to lose everybody, or can we a one-person company with a multi-billion-pound portfolio, or do we still need people in, really functioning, really offering old-school functions to your customers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that's kind of out there, isn't it? At the moment, really, are we going to get into a world where literally humans are, in the way we think about work today, aren't actually required anymore? And there'll be a question around what does a useful life actually look like? And I guess a bit philosophical in some ways when you think about it from this perspective. But the immediate things are important as well, right? Yeah. So you almost look at this as two different time horizons. There's the kind of what does a world look like in a perfect AI world, if you like, and there's another which is what do you lose potentially today. Yeah. And some of those actually we can picture by just going back to how things have, other technologies have been pervasive, have actually, sort of come into our lives and changed the way we think, the way we work, and the way we do things and live our lives. Let's think about what, say, a sat nav would do, right? We lose the ability to have spatial awareness, to plan the route, to understand the sort of ins and outs of the environment that we're actually walking into. Yeah. And it's very, very similar actually with some of the AI tools. We lose cognitive ability, we lose, that criticality, we lose our sense of judgment. So it's fundamental things there that we could lose. They're not necessarily, compulsory that we lose them, but I think we need to be quite intentional about understanding what is we're actually doing here, what are actually our benefits and what are the trade-offs, what are the things that we're going to be letting go of by actually adopting these new technologies.
If we trust AI too much, we lose the ability to ask questions. I've asked millions of questions to tens of thousands of people, and some of them have been ridiculous and stupid and just lazy. But to be able to ask a question is the only way we will deal with the lack of skills we have in the future if we trust AI too much. My worry is that we relinquish our control over the answers we get.
Absolutely. And I think even beyond that, in some ways, the big thing for us to remember is that a lot of the trusting isn't because of the wisdom of AI. Actually, the trusting is because of the confidence that it exudes. And so we need to remember that being confident isn't equivalent to being knowledgeable or even being intelligent.
So Edosa, look, once in a while we have to get together, and I'm really glad we did. These are subjects that we simply have to wrestle to the ground and understand more clearly.
Indeed. And it was so good to have you. You came all the way here to Ljubljana. So that was amazing. So absolutely. I think some of these issues are so significant, aren't they, that you really need to sit down and talk about them. And I think we got a lot of value out of that interaction, didn't we? And I do hope actually people listening and watching got a lot out of it as well. And so we'll encourage you really to keep interacting and keep sending us those messages. We're really excited to get them. And we do respond, don't we, to almost every single one of them.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what this is all about. If we're going to have a really open conversation about AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we need to do it together. So please get in touch. You can find us anywhere you like, really. At AI Values is the place to look. And we would just love to hear from you. But more than that, it's a group conversation. We are in this together. So thanks very much for watching and listening to us this time around. Edosa, I look forward to seeing you again next time.
Yes, indeed. We have to do this more often. We get so much out of it. But listen, from me, for now, it's goodbye.
Thanks a lot. Take care.